and welcome back to our Grove Discipleship videos. Up until this point, we spent a lot of time talking about the gospel, what it means to really receive Christ, to become a follower of Christ, and how we can have both security and assurance in knowing that we are children of God. So now we're going to move on from that, and we're just going to spend some time talking about the commands of God and what it really means. If we're going to be a follower of Christ, we're going to do what He says and do what He does. If we're going to be devoted, that means that we're going to listen to what God says and be committed to that. And so, what does it mean? What are the things that God is asking us to do? Well, there's a passage in Matthew chapter 22 where someone asks Jesus, what is the most important commandment in all of Scripture? So, if that verse exists, if there is a time when Jesus was asked what the greatest command is, and He answers that question, as people who follow Him, as people who are devoted to Him, whatever He says should be the foundation of our personal lives as followers of Christ, for our churches, for our ministry, for our families, for anything. It is the foundational piece of what it means to be a fully devoted, world-changing follower of Christ. And that passage is found in Matthew chapter 22, and we're going to start in verse 36. So this is the question that he gets. Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law? And Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. So this guy asked Jesus what the greatest command is, and there's a few observations that I think that we need to make about this passage. First is that these two, he asked for one, but Jesus gave him two. They're both so important and really linked, Jesus really didn't feel like he could stop at one. Second observation, both of these are relational commands. They're not your typical do this, don't do that, do this good thing, don't do this bad thing. The things that come into our mind when we hear commands. That's not what these are. These are about being in right relationship with God and having a good relationship with other people. And the third thing that I want us to make sure that we observe is right here where it says, all the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. It's like everything else in Scripture comes from these two. What does that mean? What that means is that if you do these two things the right way, you'll be following all of the law, all of God's commands. But the reverse is true. We can do all the do's and all the don'ts, but if we're not doing it from a heart that is loving towards God and doing it from a heart that is loving other people, if we're doing it with selfish motives, if we're doing it resentfully, but we're not doing it with love, then we're missing out on everything, the greatest things that God has called us to do. So we're going to spend the next 2 weeks talking about this. So right now we're just going to spend a little bit more time. I want you guys to dive in a little bit deeper into what this means, to love the Lord your God with your heart, your soul, and your mind, and other gospels that will add strength. And really the idea here is an all-encompassing love with everything that you are, in the way that you do, in the way that you live, in the way that you think, in the way that you talk, in the way that you act. Everything about your life. And really, people try to make kind of these one-to-one comparisons. Okay, mind is everything that you think, and soul is how you feel. Yeah, I understand that. But it's not really, there's supposed to be these kind of one-to-one correlations. It's really just kind of Jesus' way of saying, in every conceivable way, in every part of your life, you need to be demonstrating love towards God. And so at the very beginning, we talked about knowledge, skills, character, vision, all of these different things that we want to grow and change in us. Well, we need to make sure that in everything that we do, in the things that we're learning, in the character that we have, in the new ways that we're thinking, and all of these things, that we are starting with a devoted love towards God. I want to believe the right things about God. I want to feel the right things about God. I want to do the right things for God. And so this is the core and foundation of what it means to be a follower of Christ. I have now embraced the gospel. And first and foremost, my life needs to be incorporated by an all-encompassing love for God.